stop him.
We must get our freedom or we shall die trying. We are fighting for freedom. We are fighting for freedom.
26 minutes to the hour of 8. A very warm welcome to us. If you have been with us right from 6:30 when Morning at 10 TV began.
Morning to the panelists.
A member of the National Resistance Movement, senior citizen, seasoned political commentator.
Thank you very much. And good morning to you. And good morning to the panelists. And good morning to everybody watching us this morning.
We are also joined by Dr. Arthur Bainomugisha, Executive Director at the Advocates Coalition for Development and Environment, but a seasoned political commentator too. Many thanks for making time.
Thank you and good morning, viewers and listeners.
We also have in studio, I've been reliably informed that he is the moneybags for the National Unity Platform. Party Treasurer Benjamin Katana, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you and all our viewers. I'm glad to be part of this discussion.
Thank you for making time, gentlemen. Today we are discussing the impetus that has been created by the latest spat between the Uganda Police and the National Unity Platform ahead of 2026. Why do I say ahead of 2026? The posturing and position taking is taking shape, whether it's within NUP, FDC, DP, or NRM. So the players are out and about, and we cannot ignore the fact that that is taking place. But first and foremost, allow me ask the treasurer at the National Unity Platform, who in this particular few minutes that we shall be discussing will speak on behalf of the National Unity Platform. Where are we when it comes to the communication that was issued by the Uganda Police Force on the next wave of mobilization rallies by the president or principal of the party?
Thank you very much. I'll begin from the point of the question asked. The communication from Uganda Police Force, which was signed off by the Deputy Inspector General of Police, which we find unfortunate, partisan in nature, and illegal. The said directive, in the said directive, the Deputy Inspector General of Police tries to reenact what was nullified by the Constitutional Court in the case of Mwanga Chivumbi versus Attorney General regarding the powers of the police relating to public gatherings, assemblies, and rallies. And our position, as communicated by the party president the other day during the press briefing, is that the IGP or the Uganda Police Force has no mandate to stop activities of a political party. Because when you look at that letter, police alleges that there were cases or incidents of violation of the law. And our question is, were these alleged offenses committed by all the members of the party? If there are individuals that offended the law, arrest them, prosecute them, but it gives you no mandate to ban a political party in effect. Because if you say we are halting your activities, we are in effect saying the political party should go into limbo, which is over and above the mandate of the police force. Number two, when you look at the contents of that letter, you will see that the police is actually giving evidence of what has been said previously, that a big section of the police force has been dragged into partisan politics. Because as the Inspector General of Police, you have no business labeling political actors. Say they are bullying, I think he even used words like hooligans, mob. And so, which is unfortunate, that the Inspector General of Police can lower himself to a level of participating in partisan politics, moreover, written in that statement. So we find the contents and the letter unfortunate and unlawful. And like we mentioned earlier, we have no responsibility to abide by orders that are not anchored on the law. Because the Inspector General of Police or anybody in that capacity or above must also conduct himself or herself within the confines of the law. Number 3, when you look at that document, the Inspector General of Police or the deputy, because I'm sure he was acting on behalf of the Inspector General of Police, he's the investigator, he's the prosecutor, and he's the judge on significant matters like hate speech. And these are concepts that are known and established. For example, what is hate speech? And our viewers and everyone out there should be able to draw a distinction on what is hate speech, because hate speech must be targeted on identifiable.
Okay, before we dive into the nature and what hate speech actually constitutes, I'd like to first ensure that we thresh out the situation as it is in far as how NUP will go forward in light of the letter, because we know the police has the mandate to ensure that law and order is maintained. Let me just quickly go to Dr. Arthur Bainomugisha. In light of the police letter, police has the mandate to act if it anticipates that there is a likelihood that the law will be breached and perhaps disorder will ensue. Do you find this more like okay, normal, or has the police failed, particularly given the tone of the language used in that letter?
No, thank you very much, moderator. I think for me, let me look at it in perspective. What we see now is part of the political history and political economy of this country. The relationship between the ruling parties and the opposition from independence has always been adversarial. The competition has been die or do. It has not embraced, the relationship has not embraced a democratic culture and has not embraced patriotism. And I think also it has to do with the fact that politics has remained a mainstay, a main livelihood for people. They have not one of themselves. So you go into politics, then you're able to amass wealth and survive and that kind of thing. And so the point I'm making is that because the relationship has always been adversarial, it's a continuation. Even in a young party like NUP, with all it has all the future the indications that can grow into formidable or party. It catches immediately, or gets infected by the old disease that has always actually perverted our democracy and democratic culture. So whenever for example, now the relationship with the police, it's not actually the police, it's the government. Because police is an arm of government. And you see, instead of sitting together, because I think for me the approach now would be, if they think there has been breaches or failure to follow the guidelines, and the police has written to NUP, I think what should follow is actually now a conversation to sit and discuss and be able to guide the party. But I think also it goes back to maybe on the part of government, because every political party's objective is to aggregate support from the citizens and take power in a democratic process. And so it must go to the citizens. And NUP and any other political party, NRM, DP, and others, actually yesterday UPC announced they are also going on a nationwide tour. But I think what is at issue is the guidelines. Following the guidelines, I've been watching the mobilization, with all due respect to my brother. I think the mobilization has gone through business districts disrupting. That display of power and support is disruptive. And I think it may not be their problem. It's like, a girl trying to demonstrate how beautiful it is, but in the process, disrupt everybody. They don't take the blame alone, but also government, because NUP was authorized to canvass. And then now you are being stopped. I think the guidelines. But if NUP has disobeyed the guidelines, then for me I would also advise that it is important, even moving forward, if NUP was in power tomorrow, because the elections are in 2026. It's still a long time. But too, this country is emerging from the effect of COVID-19, the disruption by the war in Ukraine and Russia, and all these vagaries of climate change. The effects of climate change. For God's sake, we must build the economy. There's a lot of youth unemployment. There's a lot of poverty. Our people actually slunk into poverty, and now we are imagining the economy grew at 5.3, and it's projected to grow at 6%. But so to be able to achieve that, you also need some tranquility. You need even all the forces in opposition and the government to marshal, because in politics and in democracy, this is what we call riding around the flag. In times of crisis, like now, the economic crisis, when you are building, sometimes there's a need for the opposition and the government to ride together and build and come out of this ditch, and then actually you can all this. But what I see now is adversary, and actually we are confusing the population. We are confusing the population, and but also, and I want also to be brutally honest, the young people, yes, the future. They are future leaders, they are present and future leaders, but they have adopted a culture, a culture of they're angry. We have an angry population, we have an angry nation, and I think that doesn't take us far. And that anger is not only in the opposition or what, it's everywhere. And that's why there's a need for soul searching for this country, and actually proposing a national conference to sit together and map out and agree on how to build democratic parties, democratic systems. We need to build democratic systems. So when you come to power, actually you can build on what has been there. But if we come to power with anger and violence, you beget violence. And I don't think this country should go back to that.
Captain Francis Babu, listening to Dr. Arthur Bainomogisha, I realize that he's not happy with the fact that the actors who ought to offer direction are choosing to be diversionary because of selfish interest. You will submit on that. But looking at the way political rallies have been conducted, there are incidents that are usually isolated, where there's a bit of somebody smashing into another person's business or completely disorganizing a particular set of structures at any one point in time. These incidents do happen even at rallies that are conducted by the National Resistance Movement. But the police has never been seen to act with the same decisiveness when such isolated incidents occur, where the principal or a leader is not necessarily responsible for how the people acted. Do you think the police is overrating?
I think the doctor did bring out a few things, but let's be very careful. Let's look at the actors on this stage we are talking about. We are talking about the political class, we are talking about the elite of this country, and we are talking about the population.
The population, yeah.
We are also talking about systems we have borrowed. Secondly, we've got what they call historical amnesia on politics. We forget what has happened. We seem to think things have happened today. This is a continuation of a lot of problems starting from the days of colonial rule. There is something in the colonial rule which was used, it was called divide and rule. And it is a system which is being used today, not only by this country, by all countries. People divide people so that they can rule them. Now, after we've said this and done, the next question will be, this model of multi-party system, do we understand it?
Does it work? Does
it work for us? You see, let's forget about moot courts. We sit here and talk about courts and law. And it's fantastic. It's good for the law school. for us to beat each other in
a
words.
debates and words. Yeah.
But here we are talking about people's lives. We are putting people's lives on our interests, the elite, the political class of this country, which does not seem to understand the multi-party system. They are killing the multi-party system. In 1963, they killed the multi-party system when the opposition crossed the floor and went on the other side, and the multi-party system ended. In 1980, same thing happened. Now, the same thing is happening. People are moving from one party to another. It's a game. So when the doctor says, it's for making money, people go into this thing to make money, I actually agree with him. Now, let's look at all this. What you're talking about, these things you're talking about, police, these are symptoms of something bigger. What is our problem as Ugandans? He has brought something about the dialogue. The dialogue is not the problem. They can sit down, have a cup of tea, talk about good things. When they get out of that dialogue, they go to each other's necks. Now, I don't think there is a Ugandan, and let me today speak for the Ugandans, not for political parties. Ugandans are not happy with the political class in this country. I don't care which political party they come from. I don't care who's in government and who's outside.
That has been the case for a long time.
Yeah, people are bad-mannered. And the bad manners are now coming out. You see, whenever you have a competition, if you have ever realized, whether it is football, whether it is tennis, people have a tendency, even the people who are watching, you find somebody kicking the ball when he's watching the ball. If he's on television, some of them even hit the television. Now, these are human traits. When there is a competition, they come out. Either they insult each other, either they beat each other, either they use money, either they use all sorts of things. Now, let's go to our country. Uganda. With this, if the whole political class left Uganda, it will still continue.
No doubt.
Are you with me?
I'm with you.
Now, I'm telling the political class, and I'm warning them, that Ugandans you keep on playing around with will soon refuse you. You know, they go against you. One, they have failed, they have mismanaged the economy. All of them. Because when they tell you, I'm not part of that, when they are all of them are in parliament, I don't agree. Because when it comes to dividing the 4 million shillings for each member, each one starts denying, I didn't get it, but I got it. But I didn't go there. All this is nonsense. Now let's go straight to this. The people of Uganda are asking the political class, and they're asking all of us, please, can we get good leadership? Right? Now, after we've asked them for good leadership, we then go back to our people. What is this nonsense we keep on hearing? We know that human beings are animals, and therefore they want domination. Everybody wants to dominate the other. What makes us different from the real animals is that we can cover it, we can suppress it, but it comes out often with our people. Now, the whole argument, psychologists will tell us, I'm not a psychologist, but I've seen people, because of trying to dominate and trying to show their point, they even come and insult each other. Now, that's a weakness. Anybody who insults another one, or who uses hate speech, or who uses all sorts of methods, is a weak person. He has got an inferiority complex. Whether it's in government or outside government, you stand up and abuse the other group, you are actually have an inferiority complex.
Let me hold you.
Let me finish with this one.
Please do, quickly, because I have to interject.
Yeah, please do. They keep on talking about human rights.
Who are they?
The political class.
The political class.
Yeah, I'm not talking about...
When that arm points to
No,
him...
I did this.
Okay.
I did this.
All right.
No, the only time I'll point in him when it comes to money.
Money. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the tip.
Now, I want to end by saying Article number 12 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights says, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with their private, family, home, or correspondence to be attacked upon his honor and his reputation. This is privacy. You do not go and start going to that young man's home and his home and start talking about his children, his what? It's wrong.
That's very wrong.
Right? You keep on talking about human rights, and then you say, I am young, you're old, therefore you're not important. That is not right. In the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, even all the people can take part in politics.
Of course.
No doubt.
Now,
Let me just
I wanted to end there. I want to end there by saying, please let us change our attitude.
Okay.
And two wrongs do not do a right.
Yeah.
If I abuse you and you abuse me, we can never tell the fool. Now let's go to the last one. I stood for elections. I am of a mixed parentage system. I was insulted to the hilt. I kept quiet and I won the elections. The man who insulted me lost the elections. I am now telling these political people in the class, the more you insult, the more you are going to lose your foothold.
Yes.
Okay. Listening to Captain Francis Babu, and I'm coming to you, Dr. Arthur Bainomagisha, very shortly we shall be seeking Mr. Katana's definition of hate speech in his capacity as a lawyer and not necessarily a treasurer. Captain Francis Babu sounds idealist. We are in a country where he's dispensing collective blame to people who act on individual interest. You cannot see them respond to the questions asked collectively as a unit. They will respond to these aspects as individuals with interests, be it personal or related to a party. How do we ensure that sentiment that is as valid as it sounds from Captain Francis Babu is taken care of? Parliament cannot act as a single entity to address the challenges that we need to address. The president can act on his own volition and say, for example, this is what needs to be done. But he also has to play to interests. How do we move?
Thank you very much. I think, you know, that's why we have a constitution. In 1995, actually, from 87, the constitution, around 89, the Constitutional Commission was put in place, led by Odochi. And it took 5 years to come up with the 1995 Constitution, which was hailed as the best constitution that this country and Africa has actually achieved. And the the delegates, actually, they built a country, that constitution based on the political history of this country. And they looked at what has gone and tried to. And so for me, we come back, of course, to the framers of that constitution and still pick from people like Captain Babu.
Yeah.
Captain Babu, why I'm excited about his performance, he's put it a notch higher as actually as a statesman. I see a statesman.
Thank you very much.
In Captain Babu. He's pitched it there, and I think we need to actually pick from that and build this country. We are still in the challenge of nation building. This nation, the construction of this country is not yet complete, and so we are bound to make these mistakes. And what this country needs now are statesmen and women who look at the bigger picture of this country and try to mold this country, to mold these people. But of course, that to happen, that's why I talked about the National Conference. The National Conference reforms the Constitution. I think time has come for us to look at our 1995 Constitution and actually look at these proposals, which have been there actually for a long time, and try to bring the country together to discuss the issues that actually face us and continue to build this country and build the culture. If you go into a country like the US, they have there's an American culture. It's a democratic culture. They can do everything, but they will not do harm. When America is at war, they have what they call rallying around the flag. The party politics will disappear. They run around the flag, especially when they're at war. They win the war, then they go to a politics. So I think for us now, let's go back to the point of continuing to build this country, put it together, and actually try to negate what divides us. Because I'm telling you, if this country, and I'm looking at the coups happening in West Africa, because you can invite the military into this, and what does the military bring in? Confusion. You understand? So the political class is sent a warning to the political class. Please, we have a country, We're a country, one country. Let us come together. Let us discuss these issues. And I don't mind about the interests, money and what have you. Those ones, because we need money also to do other things. But you see, there are bigger things, like, you need peace, for example, perpetual peace. And to be able to do that, we need that national conference to agree on how to lead this country together, on how to transition, for example, and have durable peace and sustainable peace and security.
Dr. Arthur Baino-Mugisha, Captain Francis Babu, and Council Benjamin Katana. It's about time that we go for a short break, but when I return, Benjamin Katana will take us through what exactly hate speech and sentiment is, so that we can understand that when you get up and you are on the rostrum or any platform for that matter, what you say, how you say, and the tone you choose to employ matters when it comes to either driving forward in terms of mobilization or dividing a populace. We'll be right back. Do stay with us. Good morning and welcome back from that short break. We are discussing the politics in the country today, including the latest developments with regard to mobilization on the part of political parties ahead of 2026 general election. The National Unity Platform has already taken shape in terms of going around the country and rallying for support in what the President, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, describes as a wake-up call. But is it a wake-up call or a sentiment that might divide the nation and the police is concerned? Hate speech has been cited as one of the factors responsible for the halt and that particular communication coming in from the police. Let me return to the studio to my guests. I have Captain Francis Babu, a senior citizen. I also have Dr. Arthur Baino-Mugisha, Executive Director at the Advocates Coalition for Development and Environment. I also have with me the National Unity Platform Party Treasurer, Benjamin Katana. Benjamin Katana is a lawyer, and I would like to ask him to put the noop jacket off and take us through what hate speech or sentiment that is extreme is, so we can understand how the debate can go forward. Benjamin Katana, what is hate speech? And at what point do I have to say what I feel is necessary to speak to a people?
Thank you very much. But before I can answer that, which I will,
what do you want to do?
I would just like to give context the discussion that was taking place earlier.
Earlier?
Yes, about the what you would call polarization in the politics of our country.
Hate speech can effectively do that.
Yeah, so this polarization is largely born out of bad politics. They were talking about the national conference and consensus.
Yeah.
At different stages in the politics in the history of the politics of our country, there have been attempts to forge what you would call national consensus. And I think one of the examples is the Moshi Conference. And he ably talked about the constitutional making process that gave us the 1995 Constitution.
That's right.
And most of these things that we are talking about, some people may call them ideal, but the country reached some minimum consensus on how the country should run.
Okay.
But we should interrogate what has led us to depart from those minimums. And the Honorable Babu was talking about human rights as being a moot court issue. But this is the consensus that the people of Uganda agreed to. And it was informed by what was happening in the world and informed by what was happening in Uganda, the history of Uganda, which the preamble everybody talks about, the checkered history of our country. And so when we are talking about matters of human rights, we are not talking about ideal situation. We are talking about what we have committed to as a nation, and that they must be respected. So, and when you talk about anger, then you should interrogate the origin of that anger. If you are saying that the young people are angry, is it in our DNA? Where the young people brought from another country and brought here? So this anger is born out. Once there is injustice, once there is oppression,
there is bound to be reaction.
There will be anger, there will be resistance. We can only pray and work towards making sure that this anger, this bitterness, does not lead to bloodshed. And how do we do that? By honestly and objectively addressing the situation. Back to the question of hate speech. Basically, hate speech is speech that is intended to incite hatred, incite danger, threaten identifiable categories of the population. For example, you can incite anger against a tribe, anger against a race, or hatred against a tribe, hatred against a race, hatred against a certain religion, hatred against a certain gender, or against a section of the population. For example, the minorities, the people on basis of sexual orientation and things of that nature. So, and the intention should be to generate hatred or incite hatred or threaten or endanger those identified sections of the religion against any danger, against any tribe.
This is the wrong man to ask the question whether the No principal actually employed hate speech in his statement.
If I could finish that, that point, yes. So, and the aftermath was that we saw people saying, oh, the speech was tribal, the speech was sectarian, the speech incited people against certain tribes. And I was asking myself that which tribe is identified as land grabbers? There's no tribe identified as such. So I think what is happening is what I mentioned, gaslighting, people trying to distort the reality so that the victims of certain injustices look at themselves as the wrongdoers.
Captain, do you agree with that?
No, what
the fact that if
I
you...
thought your question was about hate speech.
Yeah.
But that's his opinion. I'm not going
his
to
opinion, including aspects like if you talk about land grabbers as a trend in the country, corrupt civil service workers, or even thieves, are you inciting the population
against? It depends how you say it. For example, the word hate speech is defined as by Cambridge as a public speech that expresses hate or encourages violence towards a person or a group based on something such as race, religion, and so on and so forth. But the whole argument here, picking up these small things, you don't get to this. I keep telling you, you are talking about symptoms.
Did you even hear anything of that nature in Robert Chagulanyi's...
No, I didn't even listen to it.
You haven't listened to it?
I've read.
Doctor, did you listen?
I didn't listen.
I'm not trying to put any of you on the spot.
I've read what papers and what people are saying about the speech, but I didn't listen.
All right, Captain.
Yeah. Now, you see, you in this debate, we keep reducing ourselves to a very low ebb. and every time I talk to you, you say I'm being an idealist. For example, the young man quoted me as saying moot courts. No, I say don't turn this thing into something like a moot court.
Like a moot court.
You know, we should not sit here and start arguing. Like the question you've just asked me. I'm not going to go through that. I'm going to go through the real crunch of the problem. We have failed to tame the animal called politics in this country. We have failed. And the next point I'm going to tell you is that politics is management of society. Okay? If those are the two things that we are talking about, managing society, and that political parties are vehicles in which you go so that you can get into power, I can assure you, no matter what you do and use hate speech and use whatever it is and not use it and tell people lies, the average man who votes understands. And very soon he will decide. Let me tell you, if one side keeps on being difficult, people will know. People know. They know that, no, these people are being unfair. But if you use that unfairness to whip up sentiments against any particular person or group, it's not good. Whether you are in government or whether outside government. Now, in government is something else you just talked about. When you're talking about getting jobs, I've been seeing people giving names of people who are leading a certain organization in government, which is nepotism, if you like. Then there's satirical, which is like acting, whereby I insult you. But I'm pretending that I'm a comedian. Like what happened in... what is that thing that happened in America where somebody came and slapped a man for talking about his wife? So Those can happen. You can play on people's sentiment. You can use your good English to annoy people. And there is another thing. By doing so, you want to. There are people who believe that to remove a government like ours now, you need to whip up sentiment so that a revolution can remove the government. Now, that is a fact, whether you like it or not. There are people who are doing it. Now, what I am saying, and this, we don't call me idealist, we must change this country. Whether we use the method he said of sitting down and talking, whether we go back and say, no, the method what we're employing is not going to help us. Why don't I go on stage and tell the man in PG, when I go into government, this is what I will do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will not allow people to insult you, to disrespect you as citizens.
Allow me just capitalize on the question of leaders and politicians being able to rally the population by telling them exactly what they've done. We've had a series of elections in this country where we've had different political actors as presidential candidates come and deliver very good and well-written manifestos to the population. The population has heard on several occasions what these politicians have in mind and what they intend to roll out in case they are given the reins of power. Are we suggesting or saying that the population hasn't reached the point where they are totally disagreeable to what the politicians are putting forth, or they understand but they don't have the power?
No, let us be honest about our politics. What he's talking about. There's still political maturity here. Look at our masses. Of course, illiteracy rate, poverty, all those things. Actually, it has been argued that poverty undermines the growth and thriving of democracy. But there are countries that have beaten that. Malawi, Zambia, they are settled democracy and they are poor, relatively poor. Tanzania. But the point you are talking about here, actually people here, even when they are given 1,000 shillings, 500 shillings or what to vote, even when they vote, in their hearts, they are not convinced. They are not convinced that actually they should vote for you, that you are better. People know, as actually he said it. But let me come to that point. I think our population is captured. Is captured by the political elites. And that's why actually some of the changes need to take place at the political elite level. Leadership is very, very important. A person like Hitler drives a country to kill 6 million Jews. Just one person making that speech, fearless speeches, and people move. We saw genocide in Rwanda. And people have been tried, you know them, using the radio, using all that, and 1 million people killed. So what we have to do also, actually, and I'm talking to the political class, I'm an academic, I'm a policy analyst, but I'm also a peacemaker. I've been involved in mediating peace in South Sudan and in Northern Area. So I understand it.
Peace is not a one-day affair.
It's a process.
It's a process that goes on and on and on.
So for me, I think I'm appealing to the political class that actually your actions can lead this country to chaos or can build this country. So you are very, very important political class. And actually, as we talk about the sitting together, the national conference, why did I say this? Because this is a tool that has been used for countries that are emerging from war to peace to continuously use it. He's talked about the Constituent Assembly. That's one of them. Actually, we are very, very sick that time. Now we still use a national conference. Actually, no, we are not extremely sick. We've made progress. As a country, we've made progress. So now, but the sickness hasn't gone. So we continue to use the same instrument, the same tool to transition completely. And actually, we will be seeing the transitioning of new leaders. But even the old leaders will be actually now bequeathing, because they can't also that does not bequeath to the new generation.
One can't help but hear the plea from Dr. Arthur Baino Mugisha and Captain Francis Babu to the National Unity Platform to understand that it is a delicate situation, that if you choose to play that card of arousing sentiment within the population against the establishment, there is a likelihood that we could descend into anarchy.
I think it is a misplaced call, especially considering that.
Do you ever, within
Let
the
me
national...
put it in context, because now I don't want to be misunderstood by no.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to be misunderstood by one party. I'm saying this is a call for the political class.
entire political
but
class.
also, let me also say this to the ruling party, the NRM. The NRM has a bigger responsibility as a bigger brother, as a party that led this country from war to relative peace that we have. They have a bigger responsibility, not to break, but actually to build. For example, that political tolerance of the political parties, because these political parties that are there, they are legal. And they need to be supported, they need to be nurtured. So the NRM, which is very big and is in a comfortable position with all the resources, they need to nurture leadership.
Let's give
even when that leadership can actually wrestle power from them.
Before you give him the opportunity, we are not talking about segregating the population. All of them. The whole population, the whole political class. We say, when you start segregating them, you get yourself in a lot of problems. The whole of our people, the young, the old, the ones who don't talk, the ones who are PWDs, the women, all of us must be treated, must understand that there is a precarious problem and we need to find solutions to it.
When you examine the political landscape and the country's problems, including, as Captain Francis Babu puts it, does it occur to leaders within the National Unity Platform to understand the power they have when it comes to rising sentiment, especially among the young, to creating the kind of direction that these young people ought to follow, not necessarily to play along and to their sentiment?
First of all, is to reject the insinuation that we are playing along. One is that it's true we have a responsibility because we believe that we have a big section of the population that we offer leadership.
Okay.
Number two is that it is never lost on us that we have a duty to provide responsible leadership. However, that does not take away the duty to call out injustices when they happen. If, for example, and I will use the rally in Ruwero because that has been the
bone of contention,
it's what has kicked the storm about this discussion. We talked about injustices that the people of Ruwero particularly, who supported the liberation struggle, as it was called, have suffered under the same government. And we mentioned cases of land grabbing, which is very rampant in that area. And I would wish to add that it is not only in Ruwero that we talked about injustices. When we were in Rwenzori, in Kasese, we talked about the injustices that the people of Rwenzori have suffered. We talked about the royal guards who died in detention, those who were detained for over 7 years without trial, the humiliation of the king. We talked about that injustice, but it did not seem to make the regime uncomfortable until when the injustices in Ruwero were mentioned. And then the words were taken out of context and presented as a sectarian and tribal talk. But I would like to emphasize one thing, that we are dealing with a situation where the politics of the country, especially on the side of the people in power, they have reduced the constitutional order into nothing, and the country is being run on the whims of an individual. That is why at different stages, whenever provisions of the constitution have stood in the way of the president, the incumbent, these provisions have been removed through inappropriate processes, and they have talked about people sharing money. And so we have someone exercising absolute control over state institutions. That explains the anger that they are talking about. That he's the Chief Justice, he's the DPP, he's the everything. And so the anger is born out every injustice that people have suffered. He has played a role in one way or the other. So that's why there is anger. The anger is not because some group has emerged to mobilize them. People have been beaten, people have been tortured for supporting different candidates at different stages, from 1996 to 2001 to 2006 to 2011, 2021. And the only common actor has been General Museveni, because the candidates have been changing. But at every span of election, we have had extreme violence. So that explains the anger you see in the population. There are extreme levels of poverty. And there have not been any deliberate steps by the government to address some of these issues. So when we come and talk about these issues and we make our proposals on how we think the country can be moved forward, instead, what do we get? We get our people arrested, detained, taken to the general court martial, and kept in detention endlessly.
Let me ask.
And so you don't expect people to come from that point with happiness.
Dr. Bainomugisha, you intimated earlier that you are a peacemaker, and no doubt about that. History vindicates you on the numerous times that you have been approached to be able to either offer your good offices or counsel when it comes to peacemaking. Right now, the political space is agitated, and there is need for moderate voices to take the day. Why do I say so? When you look at the happenings within the Forum for Democratic Change, the ability of the elders within the party to act on their own to be able to resolve some of these problems is suspect, because at the end of the day they also have particular interests or sides on which they lean. Has there been any concerted effort on the part of the likes of you and your peers to intervene before these politicians and the elite completely fail and cause anarchy?
Thank you very much. A very thorough order, of course, to us. I had a think tank. I'm an academic, but I've been involved. The legitimacy we have actually, yes, offered ourselves, as I rightly said. I've been a technical advisor in the case of South Sudan. I've been an advisor on the RRA, and the conflict is ended. Even here in China, there are small interventions that we've made. We also approach eminent people like him on one-on-one, which we call strategic. Bring them on board. Strategic actually meetings to discuss. But I think what I'm proposing now is a big thing. When he talks, what he has articulated, you cannot brush it away. There is that anger. It could be genuine, it could be exaggerated, but there is anger. And he has also acknowledged anger. So there is a need for soul searching in the nation. There is a need actually to channel that anger into energy for development, into peace. And it's possible. We are not actually walking where others have not walked. So that's why I'm proposing a national conference, national dialogue, which will touch on our constitution, which will touch on the laws, which will also touch about forgiveness and actually healing. So that where we have wounded each other, we can wound each other. I'm telling you, when brothers fight, we are brothers. They don't. You show the other person a pit. You don't ditch your brother into there. So what I'm saying, this country belongs to all of us, and we cannot pursue a win-lose situation. What we should pursue is a win-win situation, and that's why I was saying even the ruling party. And actually, I've told this to the Tanzanians. I also have some leg in Tanzania.
No,
that CCM
Captain,
CCM,
we might reconsider who has the money here.
CCM, listen, CCM.
Now
I'm
you're
an academic, so I do research.
Okay.
CCM, ZANU-PF, ANC in South Africa, even the NRM here, cannot position themselves to rule the country forever. In a democratic process, you plan to win, but also you can plan to lose. And when you lose, you can actually come back. And therefore, there is need for tolerance. There is need for investment in growing these parties. Should they win, you don't get a crisis. They can continue to channel the country well, and actually in due season, you actually win back the power.
I'd like to beg the indulgence of Captain Francis Babu. Your submission will come after we return from the break.
No problem.
Thank you very much. We shall return after this break. Stay with us.
President Museveni, on behalf of the people of Uganda, I am challenging you to a free and fair election.
I met Bobby at university. I didn't know he was a musician. He was different.
I didn't have so many dreams. She impacted my life. She made me realize we had to impact other lives.
I've come to Parliament and taken an oath to protect the Constitution of Uganda. Somebody had to speak for us. People thought I had the loudest voice.